Hello guys and welcome back to another episode of RPG Horror Stories. The usual, they do about the best on the channel, so if that's what people want to see, then who am I to deny them? But I don't only read RPG horror stories, I also do other tabletop RPG content and video game RPG content. Like I always say, I have a Final Fantasy series, so if Final Fantasy is one of your favorites and you want to see me break down the games and give a rating on every single one, then go check that out. But let's get this intro out of the way. These may or may not be real, okay? That's not up for me to decide. I'm just reading them. And if they're real, oh no. And if they're fake, oh no. But I'll leave that up to you guys to decide. Regardless, I think they're great to give advice on. That's it. Social media in the description if you want to find places to tell me your RPG horror story. And it doesn't only have to be tabletop. You can tell me about MMOs, such as Final Fantasy XIV, or World of Warcraft, or even non-RPG MMOs. And, Destiny 2. Okay, there's some horror stories there. Even though I'm not a Destiny 2 fan, I don't think a lot of it will have to deal with the actual video game itself. It's more about the people playing it. But that's it. Let's just get these on a roll. Our first story comes from World Gone Away. Too much. Wait, I recognize that name. I feel like I've seen that name in a previous video. Flashback. World Gone Away. Swords, or how to cheat at your own game. TLDR. The other major DM at my LGS came up with a fun live-action battle game, and he kept changing the rules to benefit himself. This section's gonna look real stupid if I actually haven't read that name before. But anyways, this first story is from World Gone Away. Too much of a good thing. It's lighthearted, guys. Thankfully, it's lighthearted. Wait, this makes no sense because this is the beginning of the video, guys. Look, later on you're gonna see what happens. Okay. But the next two stories after this one are not safe for work, as a forewarning. So you can watch this one and then I guess click off or whatever. TLDR. I am very generous with magic items when I run D&D. And one of my longtime players complained about it being too much of a good thing when we were having a conversation. When playing an RPG, we all like getting stuff. Sometimes treasure and wondrous items are the reward, even the goal of doing a particular thing. When I first started playing, I always dreamed of having characters with super cool gear, or items that I could use creatively in a number of different ways. Most of the DMs around when I first started were extremely stingy about giving out magic items, and seemed to relish taking them away in one form or another. So when I first started running games, I wanted to make sure that players had access to all of the great things that I always wanted as a player. In addition to making sure the cool items made it into every loot pile, I used to spend hours designing really cool, unique magic items to put in different places in my games. And generally, players really seem to like it. I get lots of really great compliments from players over the years about the cool stuff that they got and what I let them do with it. Memorable gaming moments that they cherish. I was talking to one of my longtime players the other day that played in a game I ran during the time of 3.0. About a cool sword that I introduced in a recent game that was a copy of something I had originally given to his character in that game many years ago. He actually did not remember it fondly. I wish I could have enjoyed that sword during that game. I was honestly puzzled because it was genuinely a really cool weapon that fit his character well. I asked him why he didn't enjoy that weapon as much. I had no reason to retire the one I was using. He gave me an axe back when I was level 7 that worked so well with my character class that I had no motivation to use anything else. And it would happen all the time. I don't understand why you didn't notice that we stopped upgrading our equipment by around 10th level. For a second I wondered why he hadn't brought this up to me at the time, but I realized that it was the aspect of the game that I think I cared a little more about than the party did, and my awkward teenage autistic butt didn't pick up on it. So I texted another one of my longtime players and asked about it, and he basically confirmed it, telling me that they liked to come to my games because I was generous items, but they said because they ended up liking their characters, the story, and party chemistry. I asked one of my current players what she thought about it, and she said she was afraid of selling some of them in town because she knew I worked really hard to come up with them, but she did admit that there were about 12 items in her inventory that she was never going to use. Yeah, too much of a good thing for sure. I guess the lesson here is that you can actually take the fun out of getting cool loot by doing it too often. Ah, what a light-hearted story compared to the ones that are about to come. Not a worse horror story. In fact, it's just a lesson. It's not even like we're so used to the depravity of mankind and people being awful people. And here we just had somebody who gave out too many magic items. And you know what? I'm all for it. I guess I get so tired of reading the depraved, which is kind of ironic with what is about to come up. But since this is the first story, you'll just have to see. But yeah, the problem here is just giving out, look, D&D can be a rather power-building loot extravaganza, but too much of a good thing, as they said, can be a bad thing. Giving out too many items that stuff just becomes inventory filler, and then it's kind of cool that they made so many unique items that the players didn't want to sell it. And when you do give out loot, make sure it has some type of impact or something it changes for the player. I'm not saying every time you give out loot, you know, gold is good enough loot, or like they said, quest objectives or small time rewards. Like even like a +1 longsword is good enough loot for some people. Because you don't want to give out these overly unique items, because the more you hand them out, the less they start to feel unique, because then you're just getting a slew of unique items. But I like that they took what they wanted as a player and they put it into their DMing style. Now granted, at session 0, you should probably explain that, hey, I really like to give out a bunch of items, so you're going to get a lot of items. But again, it's so mild that it's not even that bad. And the person bringing it up years later, again, if something's happening, you should talk with them at the time. You know, you don't have to be mean about it. Just like, hey, I feel like I'm getting too many items. And that's about it. I mean, this person sounds like they're nice enough and they would completely understand. So I don't see any harm just talking about maybe changing up the DMing style just a little bit. So all in all, this is just a simple, lighthearted. It's not really even a horror story. It's just, like I said, it's just a DMing lesson. But if you like giving out items and that is your DMing style and your players love it, then just keep doing it. And always ask and see what your players think about your current DMing style, okay? If they aren't going to go to you, then go to them. So that way everyone can continue having fun. I would like to take the time and say that if you ever wanted me to read a super long story, or if that's what you prefer, then let me know. But I am personally not a fan, because at certain points I'll forget what happens in the story despite just reading it, because I'm kind of just reading along, and then it kind of messes up at the end where I want to give advice, but I forget about stuff that happened in the story. That's why I prefer shorter RPG horror stories, but don't be afraid to send me any kind. If you send me a really long RPG horror story, I'm still probably going to read it, okay? I'm definitely going to read it right now. This is our NSFW episode, except for the first story. Everything else, it's going to be NSFW from here on out. So this next story contains essays, so if you're not comfortable with that, skip. I'm definitely not putting this as the first story. Our next story comes from No Pineapple 4557. My character got essayed by player the first time I played D&D. This happened a couple years ago, and I haven't played D&D since. I'd always wanted to play D&D since I was a child, and in 2023, me and a bunch of my friends decided to give it a try. It was everyone's first time playing anything like D&D, and we were so excited. My cousin was a DM, and he decided to do a silly short campaign, since we all agreed that doing something really serious could be really complicated since we had no idea what we were doing. First couple sessions were alright, except for one person. A bard. S.A. Bard, I think we know where this is going, but let's continue. Who had a pretty serious main character syndrome. At first it seemed like he was kind of just dumb and couldn't figure out how anything worked. For example, he tried to use high level spells and give himself legendary items. But we just told him to stop and explained to him how we made our own character so he could have some guidance. The third session was when everything went to crap. We entered our first dungeon and we found the villain we had to defeat was actually a kidnapper who used children as meat shields. Because the DM thought it would be funny to have a villain based on a real guy who was exposed as an actual PDF file. Are you sure the bard's the problem here? Let's continue. This was really triggering for me, but I tried to keep calm and just pretend none of it was actually happening. For clarification, these guys were my only friends at the moment, and I was desperate. Well, there it is. See, not everything is black and white. Not everything is just like, oh, talk it out. Like, I always say, talk it out, but it's never just that simple. Again, I always say, use my advice with caution, but as we can see here, sometimes that's just all you have. If you grow up in an area that doesn't have, like, game shops or anything of the such, then it can be really hard to find other people with interests such as tabletops. So, in turn, it's really hard to find another group. So, certain people will take the bad D&D and run along with it, even though you probably shouldn't. Remember, no TTRPGs are better than bad TTRPGs, or whatever the saying is. Like, whatever. Let's continue on with the story. After we finally killed this guy, we were going to camp and pass the night since our characters were exhausted. I was ready to call it a day and end the session after that, but the bard had other plans. Turns out he found all of the dungeon hilarious and wanted more. My character was the only woman in the party, so he asked the DM if he could cast charm on me to... Yeah, you guys know. I don't think I need to spell it out for you guys what happens, but yeah, you know. The rest of the party was silent and clearly weirded out, but the DM, my effing cousin, said that it was funny and told him to roll for it. He succeeded to roll and proceeded to do it. I was sick. I decided to kill his character before leaving, and shortly after, the campaign was cancelled. I actually get so mad thinking about all of this. I haven't played D&D since, except for a time where we tried to do another campaign without that guy, but we only played once for other reasons. And that's the end of our story. Wow, I am caught off guard. I saw the title, and I'm still caught off guard because the DM was their cousin. Their own family member sat there and let it happen. I hope they talked to someone about this, talked to them about this, how this made them uncomfortable. And it sucks that this is the first time. I mean, it was all their first time playing, but gee, that's a horrendous way to start D&D. Now, they haven't played since, but if you find yourself in a similar situation, there is always online D&D. It's not for everyone, but it can help you get out and find another group. And if something happens like this, you can just block everyone and move on to the next group and hope they're a lot better. But again, it's not always that simple. Sometimes you want to play RLL and then you just don't have the groups around you. Like I said earlier, I would definitely recommend not playing over stuff that happens like this. But I'm so sorry this happened to the OP. I hope they're doing better nowadays. I'm never going to downplay anything, even if it happens at a TTRPG. That's so messed up, okay? Your own cousin just letting it happen. It's even in a fictional. That's just awful. We're just gonna move on, okay, to our next story. See, I don't know where I put this story, so this is either gonna be the final story or the next story, or this is the end of the video. But regardless, we are going to move on into our next story. Our next story comes from Sly DeVile. Crappy situation. This one is kind of gross, so I'm marking it as NSFW. Oh boy, okay. Are you guys braced? Are you prepared? Okay. I don't know what's in this story, okay? So, I just as a forewarning, you're catching my live reactions. I don't pre-read these stories, I just go straight into it, so let's go. For context, I'd reached out to a local DM who was looking for players, whom I refer to as DC. I needed at least one more player for my first campaign, and they needed players for theirs. So I told them they could meet my other 3 players and see if they wanted to join their campaign while playing in mine. I also agreed to play despite not enjoying being a player. We play at my mom's business in a conference room outside of regular work hours. 2 weeks ago, DC shows up with their partner to play D&D. It's been about 6 weeks since the start of my campaign, and DC and said partner tended to get there hours early to chat, mostly watch videos with headphones on their phone. Oh, that scared me. Chat was in quotation marks. I was afraid. I was like, seriously, at the mom's business, you're gonna quotation chat? I'm glad it was just that for now, as far as I know. But I digress. DC arrives almost 3 hours early, which is annoying, but at least they let me prep in peace, so I don't mind. DC disappears shortly after arriving, says something about the bathroom, and after about 20 minutes I check to make sure they aren't digging around in the business side of the building. I barely know DC and haven't had time to build trust or rapport with them. I go back to sit and wait. About 10 minutes later, DC calls me out of the room and tells me they plugged the toilet and they've been trying to fix it. I say, no problem, old buildings, old pipes. And I go to check to see if I can fix it. I find 4 very clearly not TP wipes floating in the water. So I go, DC, are those flushable wipes? Yeah, TP just doesn't get the job done. Right, but those all have a warning label on the front not to flush more than once. Yeah, I know. I just didn't think it would be a problem. Hellaciously disrespectful in my opinion. Not just to me, but also the building and my mom too. Could've just crapped at home instead of getting there early to watch some videos on your phone. Oh, the title is starting to make sense. Oh, okay. They said it was gross, but I was expecting something forward. Let's just finish it. For the rest of the session, I proceeded to try and plunge the toilet in the women's bathroom because there's only 2 men that work there and 10 women that do. Not to mention most of the clientele for one of the renting businesses in the building are women. So this is a massive problem. I decided there was only one course of action, and that's to tell my mom what happened. She told me that, due to the disrespect shown, that DC was banned from the premises, and that DC would have to pay the plumber bill for it. I decided that this would have to be the end of them in my campaign, and I booted them from my Discord, removed myself from theirs, and let them know what my mom had decided. I got a lot of mixed messages back to me in some long letter style, text basically saying, OP, I wish you would have talked to me so we could figure out a new location, or figured out Skype or something to proceed with this. And trying to guilt me because I thought our friendship meant more than this. I basically responded, look, I don't really know you well enough to justify putting in all that effort, especially since that's my mom's building and you disrespected it. DC proceeded to make excuses, blame me for being hostile, said, those wipes have always worked. You just have a bad septic system, and the list goes on, so I just stopped responding. I've had about 20 people read through the messages, and they all agree I wasn't hostile or rude, just blunt, which is perfectly understandable. Wow, what's the advice here? Besides just being respectful to the place that you're playing your games in, read labels on flushable wipes. I'm gonna be honest, guys, yes, it was gross, but I thought it was gonna be way worse, especially with the partner involved and them disappearing for a while. I was like, I don't know where the story's gonna go, but I'm glad the title finally connects and it makes sense. And wow, that is gross, and I'm glad it's the final story. That's gonna make my ending a bit odd, because I kind of like have to jumble around and put these stories in different places, but don't clog toilets, respect the places you play in, and that's it. Be good people. And now that's it for our stories for today. Can you tell which story I read first and which one I didn't? Did you have a favorite? Please don't have a favorite today. If you're gonna have a favorite, let it be the first one. The other two are, again, I put that warning, so if you're still here after the video, thanks for watching. And thanks to the OPs of posting today's horror stories as well. So thanks everybody who helps me continue my channel growth. Is there any advice that you guys thought about having today? There's not really, besides that like second story, I think, with the cousin, I don't think there's like any actual advice you could give, because the other two are just kind of, the one's super lighthearted, the other one's lighthearted but also really gross. And there's not really much advice to give on that. But what was your guys' favorite story? And if you have your own advice, and if you have your own stories, send them to my social media. It's all in the description. Can you tell? This is the end of the video. I want to get out of here. Bye-bye. I'm going now. I hope you gobs have a lop of a day. And may your adventures be free from terrible, awful, horrendous, toilet stopping people. Bye.